I just here want to present a little initiative that we're starting and in progress, and hoping that if anyone that have the similar interests, please come to me. Where we have a lot of, I do think we have a lot of potentials, even we're just very small right now. So, so like Marsha said, I have a background at working for United Nations for over 10 years, and in there, and I spent like about 8 years in UNICEF, and my job is child protection. And child protection, what basically it means is we work on protect children from all different type of adversities, and including abuse, sexual abuse, physical, mental, neglect, and exploitation. And why we do that is because there's numerous. I can keep on talking about this for a whole day, but there's so many studies that has shown that what happens in our childhood will be a strong indicator for what happens, the outcome of our life in later time. And one of those major studies was actually done here in the United States, and it's called ACE. I don't know if anyone heard about that. Wonderful. Oh, at least someone. So ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experience, and it's done by Kaiser Permanente, and it already collect over 17,000 data samples. What they did is very, very simple. It's not technically, it's not a really a research even. So what they just give people a questionnaire and asking if they have ever experienced one of those adversities in their childhood. And because it's Kaiser Permanente, they have the record of what they are now as an adult. And what they find is quite amazing, which actually this result has been repeated in other countries by other researchers over and over again. So if compared to the ones that never experienced any of those in their childhood, if you experience 4 of them, you're 7 times more likely to become a alcoholic, and you're 2 times more likely to be diagnosed with cancer, and you're 4.6 more likely to suffer from depression, and you're 12 times more likely to try to commit suicide. And there's a lot more than that. And if you actually happens to experience 6 of them or even 7, your life expectancy actually will be shortened by 20 years. This is just really, like I said, it's been repeatedly confirmed by all different countries. And I remember there was one done in New Zealand. It's also a longitude study over 40 years. And what they find is basically, if we know when you're 3 years old, if we can know about your family environment, we can know the social status, socioeconomic status of the family, and we can have a score on your cognitive ability. It's very much, we can do a very good prediction of the outcome of that person's life. Like if they're going to be a single parent, if they're going to stay in hospital for over 70 days per year, and if they're going to suffer from a variety of disease, and if they're going to live on social welfare. And in neuroscience, this was confirmed in a more visible way. So if you think about the fact that when we're born, our brain is pretty small. It's only 25% in its size, but most of the neurons are already in place. And the difference between a matured brain and a newborn brain is just the difference in the amount of connections between those neurons. And those connections were built based on the experience we have in our life, especially the early life. And what happens when there's not enough stimulation in the environment for us to experience and to grow our brain, this is what will happen. On the left-hand side is a normal 3 years child's brain, and on the right-hand side is someone experienced extreme neglect. I think that brain was from someone from orphanage in Romania. So you don't get to reach your full potential just because there's lacking of stimulations in your environment. But what if there's enough stimulation, but they're bad stimulations? Then it actually will damage your neurons and your connections, and again, you will not be able to reach your full potentials. And I've spent a long time, and my colleagues as well in UNICEF, to tackle that problem. And I guess there's more than just United Nations working on that. And like for me, the discussion argument about free will I don't feel so confident to talk about it, because if you really think about our outcome in life, and because I know this through all those researches, that our outcome was depending on the interaction between our genes and our environment. And if you really think about, we don't get to choose our genes, and we also actually don't get to choose what kind of environment we're going to live in when our brain is in this critical period of growth. And so where's that opportunity for free will comes from? There's different ways to tackle that problem. And again, each of those topics, I can keep on going for days, but I should have just 10 minutes here. So if you think about the way solutions, and most of people will first all think about money. Funding is definitely critical. No argue about that. But the thing is, funding itself is a tool, it's not a solution. And I will argue that if you're not spending it in a careful way, it actually can do harm than good. Legislation changes. That's definitely critical. In 2016, we have our first family violence law passed in China. And that law by itself, on that day, will start to protect hundreds, millions of children from abuse and violence. But if you think about the fact that it actually takes 14 years from the first proposal of that law to have it actually passed in the People's Congress, how many 14 years we have in our life, and how many 14 years a child can wait before their potential for lifelong well-being being permanently damaged. So I have colleagues working on that, and I have full respect for them. But for myself, I more clinging to go for the solution that really tackle on the child and the family, and to be more cost effective. So I come to work on the mind. I spent 8 years to try to develop programs that can really help children to reach their potential and to have a better well-being in later of their life. I work with different universities, and we try to assess the effectiveness of those tools. And by mind, I want to say that, so which part of mind we're trying to work on is, most of people would think about the cognitive ability, which is really, really important, critical as well. Like IQ probably would be the first come into mind. If I have a way to increase IQ for all those children in disadvantaged situations, that would be wonderful. Like that would change the whole world, even just 5%. But the problem with IQ is it's very hard to change. Why? Because IQ test is basically designed to measure something that is very stable in our cognitive ability. But the good news is IQ is not everything. It's not a predictor for our achievement or life satisfaction and our well-being. So I will just jump to all the conclusions. So what we find is more effective is to teach children social emotional skills. And those skills by itself not only accelerate academic performance, but also will be a predictor for their life satisfactions. OECD had a research on social emotional skills, find it more, it's a stronger predictor for life satisfaction than IQ itself or any cognitive skills. I think another research here find that is social emotional skills actually can increase academic performance by 11%. So there's so many different ways to work on social emotional skills. And what I choose is this, meditation. Has nothing to do with technology, although it should combine with technology so that make it more accessible. I will save the whole story of why, but just because basically in Brave, it has two advantages. First of all, it's very cost effective. It doesn't cost a penny to practice this if you get to know how to practice properly. And it has all very hard evidence, robust evidence on the effectiveness for children. On executive functions, there's research shows that 2 weeks of meditation practice can improve GRE score by 16%. And there are also like all those, I want to emphasize one thing, why I'm doing mindfulness and compassion meditation, because again, there's another whole story, but mindfulness by itself doesn't bring all those advantages. And if you actually look at the social skills and anything below the executive function part, those measurements are actually measuring the compassion meditation. Those are the benefit of compassion meditation rather than just mindfulness. How we do it. So my goal, our little initiative's goal is to support the development of well-being, not just academic performance or simple measure of depression or positive emotions. So Richard Davidson has a wonderful theory on well-being, which I adapted for our program, that he argued that there's a 4 pillar of a human's well-being, which is including awareness, which is our attention, and then connection, basically our interpersonal relationship with others and with ourselves. Insight is about our capability to reflect on our internal state, and purpose by itself is arguably there's one research shows that is the strongest predictor of longevity, and happens to be all those 4 pillars has already very matured mind training tools to cultivate them. So, and we're trying to reach children, of course, but to reach children, most effective ways to reach children and to support children is to support their families. So we have developed this little program cultivating those different items, but what we're targeting on is to teach parents or caregivers to teach children to do that, because through that little twist, we can actually create a more enable environment for children themselves. We're in process of have this app in place, and I'm actively looking for ways to combine the technology with it, because that can make it more accessible, more cost effective. That's pretty much it. And we have 2 different sites going to test the effectiveness of this program. One with very disadvantaged families in Guizhou province, where there's a lot of minority children, and they're still like their monthly living cost is still under $15. And we have another group that in very advantaged cities, coastline cities, that for me, I think disadvantaged families or children don't deserve something that is lower grade. If it works, it has to work for both, and they should have the same, enjoy the same standard program with their peers in more advantaged, privileged communities. And that's it. Thank you.